Soggy Science here. Ha ha! Episode 37! 37 of them! That's crazy! So many. Welcome, guys. We're still in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. World record events, unfortunately, were not successful. However, a lot of really good diving. A lot of really good diving happened. Whoop! Wow. This week, big stories, El Nino. El Nino. El Nino. That's a periodic warming of the Western Pacific that migrates east and creates all kinds of changes in global weather patterns. Ha ha! Global weather patterns! Global! And especially for us on the Pacific. Usually means more rain for California, which could be good news for the drought. But it's still up and down by the predictions, and the models are a bit strange, and they're saying moderate and all this stuff, 65% chance. The animals seem to differ. The animals seem to differ. Again, we've been talking about all kinds of crazy things in Southern California. Crazy! Well, this week's no different. A gentleman named Eric Kim caught a 50-pound wahoo! Wahoo! In California! They think that's never, ever happened before. So, as much as the scientists are unclear whether El Nino will happen, El Nino, the animals seem to beg to differ. So, from the animal sighting and catching and seeing and diving with, this is stacking up to be like 97, which was massive. Anyway, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Hopefully for the drought, it's a big one. But too much rain can be a bad thing too. Too much of a good thing, right? Well, some positive news for California. The California blue whale population appears to be back to near historic levels. They think that there are 2,200 animals now, and that's 97% of their historic normal population. Blue whales were the one big whale after whaling stopped that they thought hadn't really come back. Well, it turns out since 1905 to 1971, when they were taking them, they took 3,400 whales. So, compared to the Antarctic where they took hundreds of thousands. That's pretty crazy. Crazy. Nutty, I tell you, nutty. So, rather than ship strikes slowing down the recovery, they think they've hit carrying capacity for blue whales, which is really exciting. And a whole bunch of other stuff showing up, big fins and dolphins and orcas and humpbacks. So we're seeing a really interesting time. And really good news. Although ship strikes still are a huge concern. Huge! So they've got people to slow down by encouraging them through payments to go slower through the shipping areas where whales are in high concentration, as we talked about a couple weeks ago. So that's just exciting news. Weird news out of Nova Scotia. Angry beavers! You think you're playing Angry Birds? Well, turns out a gentleman named Jeremy McNaughton was snorkeling in Spanish Ship Bay. And he and his two buddies saw something really big. Big enough to be a seal, but it wasn't a seal. It wasn't. What do you think it was? It was a beaver. Mr. Beaver was pissed. He got bumped by the beaver, thought it was bumped, and then he quickly realized, once the adrenaline wore off a little bit, that Mr. Beaver bit him in the leg. Thought we had some things to worry about in the ocean. Sharks certainly aren't one of them. But beavers? Beavers! Really? Okay. Anyway, on the conservation front, turns out that the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission has recommended cutting the bluefin tuna take in half from the 2002-2004 numbers. That's good news because they're endangered and threatened and really diminishing their population. They want to try to get the population back to 8% of its original. think it's down to 5% right now or less. So, good news there. Hopefully, it will recover as fast as some of the other stuff we talked about last week, where 21 new fish were listed as sustainable. We want bluefin to be sustainable. It's been getting huge prices in Japan, where they eat most of it. But that's fairly exciting news that they're going to finally cut the take. And Japan already recommended that anyway. So, positive efforts on the conservation front. Not so good news out of Japan. Taiji, better known as the Cove from the movie. Thank you, OPS. Can't wait to see 6. Check out the trailer. The hunting season in Taiji started again. Culling of dolphins, corralling them in the cove. Luckily they've had some weather and it's running blue, but the cove will run red soon. They set a fairly large quota this year. The quota is 1,938 animals taken. The hunting season is from September to March. So if you feel so inclined, get involved and let's get them to stop that practice. Denmark as well, for pilot whales. Yeah. Japan's planning to go back whaling again too, in spite of the International Court of Justice ruling. Guys, come on. It's not science. And the Cove, as we know, isn't so much about the hunt because the meat is given away. It's about capturing dolphins for captivity in shows. We can vote to solve that one on dollars. Just don't spend your money there. Anyway. Fukishima, more Japanese news. It's a heavy Japanese week. They're having issues with water. That seems to be temporarily solved. But they're now coating the seafloor directly off of the power plant, Tepco, the company that runs it, in a special cement. Because they found that the silt has much higher levels of radiation than they'd hoped to have. But that makes sense directly off. That doesn't mean we should panic. Doesn't mean that we have high radiation. That doesn't mean we have high radiation levels elsewhere in the world because the Pacific Ocean does a good job diluting it. So let's not panic. But the media area is a huge disaster, an ongoing problem. It is not going to be solved anytime soon. Yikes! Hopefully we'll get some resolution, however. So, Australia, good news out of there. It looks like they're dropping the plans to drop the dredging for the coal plant off the Great Barrier Reef. Not on the reef. Yay! Victory! They're going to find other places to put it on land. It's a delicate ecosystem. Having a coal port right there off the Great Barrier Reef, probably not the best idea. But it's already built and done, so this is a better compromise than silting out the reef. We've pretty strong evidence that the reef would be really sensitive and damaged by that. So it's actually good news. California news. California passed a Seafood Labeling Act. We know that seafood counterfeiting and mislabeling is rampant. I would like to know the fish that I'm eating for sure. Wouldn't you? So we're the first to do that in the United States. And that's really good news. So they'll have to label where it comes from and what it actually is. No more bait and switch, pun intended. Haha. And we'll get to know what we're eating for sure. And keeping the public aware of what the fish is that they're actually eating. Eating real fish instead of something that isn't. Or crab with a K. If you haven't wondered, crab with a K ain't crab. It's usually what, some kind of cod, or pollock, or some other fish. Anyway. Interesting, super crazy species news this week. They found an underwater mushroom. Mushroom! Now, they don't know exactly what it is. They found 2 new species of a mushroom-shaped thing. And it's so different that it seems to mimic things that are probably 400 million years old. 400 million! It may be so different that it's a new phylum. So we're going to keep watch on this and see if we get more news soon. It's crazy. And Jørgen Olsen out of the University of Copenhagen in Denmark published on this. He's a grad student. What a cool find. Good job, dude. I look forward to hearing more about it. Anyway, guys, enjoy your week. Keep sending suggestions. Subscribe. And more importantly, get out there, find some adventure, get in the water, get soggy.